The Colorado Buffaloes played their first game yesterday of the 2024-2025 college football season, where they went on to defeat the North Dakota State Bisons 31-26 in an absolute thriller of a game. However, was it convincing enough of a performance? Can they compete with the top dogs in the Big 12? Can they potentially compete for a bowl game and possibly even sneak into the college football playoff? All those questions will be answered as the commentary of the Colorado Buffaloes starts right now. Welcome back to the Play by Play podcast. This is another bonus episode where today we will be looking over yesterday's performance of the Colorado Buffaloes and be dissecting whether or not they can compete with the top dogs in college football. If you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, like the video, comment down below, and share with all your friends. And if you have not already, all of the apps for all social medias will be down below for TikTok, for Twitter, and for Instagram. There will also be a bar popping up right here. Go ahead and follow those so that you can always be notified when the podcast posts and so you can see my immediate reactions to breaking news in professional football, basketball, and in college as well. But without further ado, let's get into the episode at hand today. Now, I want to make something very, very clear starting this episode. I enjoyed the Colorado Buffaloes' performance yesterday. I thought that they had a really solid performance. It was not great by any standards. It wasn't something that you were looking for to open up the season because obviously normally for teams in the Big 12, for the higher divisions, they go against lower teams in college football to kind of get them started on the right foot, warm up into it before they get into conference play. And that's what North Dakota State was. And when you look across at the Big 12, when you look across at the other teams that competed yesterday alongside Colorado, going to bring up one major one, and that is the Utah Utes. We're ranked number 12 right now in the college football rankings. They played Southern Utah, where they went on to blow them out 49-0 yesterday. We're going to be comparing the statistics between the two games. But, you know, when you're opening up the season, that is more of the performance that you're looking at. Pretty landslide blowout performance. Colorado did not have that yesterday. However, they did show a lot of improvement from what they did last year. I felt that the offensive line was a lot better. There were still a few more pressures than you would like, especially on end of quarter drives where they were trying to score towards the end of the half, get into field goal range. Shedeur Sanders was getting pressured, which obviously you would like to clean up. I believe that he took one sack yesterday, which isn't too bad, but it definitely was a lot better in the passing game. I felt that the passing game was a lot more fluid. I felt that the receivers and the quarterback had a real connection, whether it was Shedeur Sanders passing to Travis Hunter, whether it was Jimmy Horn coming in clutch with 200 yards, a touchdown coming in. His speed, his ability to extend plays was put on display yesterday, and it really, really helped them get some extra yards that they were missing out and gave them some pop outside of Travis Hunter, taking the pressure off of Hunter in the passing game. However, there are still holes naturally. Like I said, offensive line was good. They were not great. They gave up some pressures here and there. They were really, really bad in the second and at the end of that fourth quarter. So obviously you'd like to clean that up. But the main complaint, the two complaints that I have about yesterday's performance was the running game and the defense. Starting out with the running game, because that was a huge weakness in this Colorado offense last year. They relied way too much on the passing game. They had a total of 59 rushing yards yesterday. That's just simply not going to cut it. And granted, they had a solid amount of attempts. It wasn't as many attempts as you would like to see out of your starting running backs. Hayden had 9 attempts. Sanders had 6 attempts. So they combined for about 15 attempts between your starting running back and quarterback. And then they also had Cleveland Offerdahl coming off with 5 attempts. So in total, between the two running backs you had in the backfield and the quarterback, you combine right there for 20 attempts. It's not horrible, but going 20 attempts for 59 yards, that is atrocious, especially when you put into consideration that Sanders rushed for 17 yards. So put in consideration between the two starting running backs, you only got 35 yards out of them off of 14 attempts. That's not great by any means, and that was one place that the offensive line was really lacking. You saw a huge inability from them to be able to push the defensive line off of the line and create holes for those running backs to go through into the seam. When you look at defensively, North Dakota State University really had their way with Colorado's defense. 292 passing yards on the day, 157 rushing yards in the backfield, totaling for 450 total yards. You compare that to the Utes going up against Southern Utah. Southern Utah had 150 total yards for the game. They equaled the rushing yards that North Dakota State had for the game. They only had 71 passing yards. In fact, they went through 3 quarterbacks in yesterday's game, including their starting quarterback, Barry, throwing an interception to the Utes. The Utes defense was on full display. They stopped every single rushing attempt. It was really difficult for Southern Utah's quarterbacks to extend plays down the field to get it past that secondary. That's what we need to see out of Colorado, and we just did not see it yesterday. We saw Cam Miller from the North Dakota State Bisons really become a really solid field and game manager. I mean, he had a tremendous game both on the ground and in the air. He was able to control the pace of the game really well. There were some moments where North Dakota State had a 4, 5, 6-minute possession that really took away from Colorado's opportunities and put a lot of pressure on that offense to have to score every single possession to be able to keep up with North Dakota State's offense. In fact, they went into the half up. It was 20-17 going into the half. Colorado thankfully replies in that third quarter, coming out with the touchdown. The defense was able to keep them scoreless in that quarter. But then you see North Dakota State come at the end of that fourth quarter trying to make a comeback, and they made it really close. And I'm saying this for a reason, because Colorado is not in the Pac-12 anymore. Now, granted, the Pac-12 was probably the best that we've ever seen it last year. You had teams such as Washington, you had USC in there, you had Oregon. Those 3 teams probably played one of the best seasons that all 3 programs have seen in a couple of years. But this is the Big 12 now. This is a division where you do not have teams such as Stanford to potentially take advantage of. You don't have teams such as UCLA to try and take advantage of, even though I believe they ended up losing to both those teams in the regular season last year. Every single game is going to be a dogfight. When you look at this Colorado football schedule, they have some really, and I mean really, tough games ahead of them. They start next week by traveling on the road to Nebraska to face off against Matt Rhule and the Cornhuskers. They then go up against a rivalry game against Colorado State in Fort Collins, I must mention, which, as we know, was very competitive last year. UCF just coming over from the SEC. You look at the fact that they have to go on the road against number 21 ranked Arizona. Cincinnati is a tough game. Going to Lubbock to face up against Texas Tech. We mentioned Utah, ranked number 12 right now. They play number 17 ranked OSU. They go on the road against Kansas. These are tough games, and they're not going to stop. I mean, they play Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, and OSU back to back to back. They play Baylor, UCF, and Kansas State back to back. They play Kansas State, Arizona, and Cincinnati back to back. I mean, this is going to be the competition that they are facing on a regular basis. And you cannot go on and rush for 59 yards in a game. If they played Utah yesterday, they would have gotten even less. They likely would have been in the 20s. You just can't produce a one-dimensional offense, and that's the huge problem that Colorado is going to have. And the defensive side, it's not good either. Like I said, North Dakota State had their way with Colorado yesterday. These are high-powered offenses. And so when you look at the bulk of the season, if I just had to make a prediction right now, I think that it is very reasonable to say that they start well. Maybe they could go on the road against Nebraska and win that. I think that they do beat Colorado State, and I think they can beat Baylor. So at worst or at best, you start the season off 4-0. At worst, I think you go either 3-1 or 2-2. But from there, UCF could be a win. I think they lose to Kansas State. I think they lose on the road to Arizona. I think they beat Cincinnati, so that would be a big pickup. But then I think they lose on the road to Texas Tech. And then they close out their last 3 games against Utah, Kansas, and OSU with the loss. So if you count that up, I mean, the best case scenario, you're looking at a 4-5 win team. Maybe you can sneak in 6 games and get a low-tier bowl game. Who knows if Colorado is even going to be okay with that as a university, because we know the politics that roll behind Deion Sanders and where he wants to be with this program. But they're in a very, very similar situation than they were last year. They're not going to have any easy games at all. North Dakota State, that was the easy game. Sure, Colorado State, you could potentially call that an easy game. Maybe there's a couple of medium level things such as Cincinnati and UCF. But from top to bottom, you're not facing any type of teams that are on the low level as somebody like Stanford, having to take advantage of teams such as UCLA. You're going to be playing a tough team every single night. And while this is the start of the season where you will obviously like them come into better form, where you would like to see them improve on some of the holes, and I think that they will, I think that the fact that you did not see the running game pop off last night, that you didn't really see it hugely included into this one-dimensional offense, and I think that when you look at the fact that North Dakota State pretty much had their way with their defense, when you go up against these top-level offenses, the weakness is going to show, and I think that they are going to falter a lot. And that's kind of my prediction for them once again, 4-5 games, maybe potentially sneaking in 6, but I don't know where you get 6 wins from on this really, really tough schedule. That's all I have for today. Thank you guys for tuning into this bonus clip. Like I said, if you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to like, subscribe, comment down below, and share with your friends. And if you have not already, please feel free to follow us on all social medias, that being Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter/X. All the ads will be down below, and there will be a bar popping up right here. Without further ado, I'm Gabe Gallegos. This was the Play by Play podcast, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.